Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Pluto, and I'm excited today to do an unboxing of the Wild Unknown Archetypes Deck by Kim Krans. I hope that all of you are staying safe during this difficult time. I feel really lucky and privileged to have access to resources, to be safe, to be able to work from home, and I hope that you are also staying safe as well. As a lot of you know, I did a depth year from March 2019 through March 2020. And so now that it's April 2020, that means that I can have new tarot decks. And there were a lot of decks that I ogled over the last year that I thought about wanting, but the first one that came to mind was the Wild Unknown Archetypes Deck. I've been doing Kim Krans' Draw the Feeling class on Instagram Live, and I was like, if I'm gonna get one deck, this is gonna be it. And I'm still going slower in my deck buying, so I'm trying really hard to be like judicious about it, to stay within my budget, and so this was my splurge. It arrived today in this lovely box that I'm now going to unwrap. I have had a chance to see some of the imagery since I've been following Kim on social media, and I've really liked everything that I've seen so far. So even just the design of this box is absolutely delightful. And it looks like it's a slidey box. So I'm gonna slip this right on off of here. Yeah, see? Yes. And on the back you get a little preview of some of the cards. Okay, yeah, and then this box is gorgeous. It definitely feels well constructed. It has a magnetic flap, so this is absolutely a box that you could feel comfortable keeping your deck in. Wow, okay. So, first thing on the top is this lovely little guidebook. I'm really excited to read through this, by the way. And I want to show you the inside of this box because it's just absolutely gorgeous. I've been wanting a circular deck for a long time, and I definitely hope to get the Mother Peace Tarot at some point. That is also on my list. Wow, so there's a box within the box. It's very fancy. This is a beautiful little black round box. Oh no, I just dropped my lid. The inside of the lid is also beautiful. Oh wow. So yeah, gorgeous circular design. Each card has a number and then the name of the archetype that it is illustrating. I have been exploring archetypes for a very long time. I think every human is exploring archetypes whether you know it or not. My conscious exploration of archetypes started a long time ago as I started to read the work of Clarissa Pinkola Estes, really Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She is a fabulous writer, researcher, trauma therapist. She's phenomenal. If you haven't checked out her work, you definitely should. And so in her work, she utilizes like myths and stories to explore these fundamental archetypes that weave their way through the human experience. So the first two cards in this deck, we have the Mother and the Father. And one thing that, so some of you may know, like I identify as non-binary, I'm a queer person, and I've been coming more and more to terms with how sometimes the languaging around a lot of archetypal writing is very heavily gendered. And I've had my own exploration with kind of grappling with that and kind of feeling really fluid around, you know, what it is that those terms mean and symbolize and why it is that we put certain labels on them. And so I would invite you, as you explore archetypes, like don't feel limited by this terminology. At the end of the day, like only you know your internal experience, and you may come up with better language or different language to describe these phenomenon. Oh, I love this one. The Starborn. The Iris Oracle deck has a similar archetype that runs through it, sort of like, to me, it symbolizes the essential part of ourselves that predates all of this sort of like domestication and learning of like patriarchy and capitalism and heteronormativity that gets overlaid onto us. It's like that which is untouched, which is underneath, that, you know, was never broken. The Eternal Child. So glad that this archetype made it in here. This was a big part of my childhood, the orphan. So I'm not a literal orphan. I do have parents, but I grappled with this archetype a lot in terms of like kind of feeling like an outcast, feeling like I had no one that I could look to that was kind of like who I wanted to be, or reminded me of myself in the ways that I wanted to be reflected. Yes. To me, this was the antidote to the orphan energy, was finding people that I could admire, that I wanted to, that I like aspired to be. I mean, these are just so gorgeous, you guys. Like, you really, like, this is a good deck. If you're exploring, if archetypes are becoming a big part of your work, I would suggest that this might be a great tool for you to have. I like this one a lot. And I also love this one. So the crone in a lot of mythology is very, very important. I mean, we just have, you know, the wisdom of elders, and the wisdom of old women, or, you know, older folks that are, you know, assigned female at birth, is something really valuable. And we've got, you know, the maiden, the mother, and the crone is sort of like the progression, you know, of spiritual development. And the crone is an archetype that, you know, really exudes like wisdom and mystery, and there's a fierceness to it, but also, you know, a love underneath that. And I think a lot of our models for fierceness in Western culture are full of cruelty, and really lack a lot of empathy, whereas the crone is kind of the opposite, you know, and is going to fight for the underdog and to care for those that need it, but also is not afraid to like lay down the law when that's what's called for. The Judge. This is an archetype I actually identify a lot with in my clinical work. I've done a lot of work assessing people, you know, like evaluating their diagnostic presentation, evaluating for level of care. And it's a role that I took very seriously, of like, you know, I'm making some decisions and recommendations that are really going to impact someone's life. The Shapeshifter. This is an archetype that I have resonated with my whole life, always wanting to fit in and to be loved so much. And so, you know, changing my shape in the hopes that I would pick a shape that someone would find worthy. She's just coming up with like all the best archetypes. To be fair, like these are like, you know, constructs that show up in like almost every culture. So it's not surprising that she's going to pick the ones that feel resonant, because these are some pretty hard-baked things into humanity. The Shaman is a good one. That ability to connect to something larger than yourself, to feel guided by a higher power in some capacity, to be connected to nature, to be plugged into that sense of interdependence. I love this. I was actually just sculpting like a little clay monster that had like a mermaid tail, and it was super fun. Yeah, the animal. Like, we forget that like we are mammals, we are animals, we are creatures, and like our nervous systems are not really any different from the animals running around the forest or the desert or the mountains. Yeah. Kim actually just did a little talk on the Destroyer and how that's coming up in our society today. I have long identified with the Destroyer energy, and sometimes I affectionately refer to myself as a demolition Capricorn. Oh, this is too good. It's like that laugh until you cry. like I'm so excited. Like seriously, like this deck is like, I expected it to be good, but it is exceeding my expectations. Ugh, the heart. Something I'm learning to come into touch with. One of my teachers said that one of her teachers said, it's like these Russian nesting dolls of teachers, like my teacher, said, you know, really all the work is just melting the ice mountains of the heart. And I have found that to be very true. I have a lot of ice mountains and they are slowly melting, little trickles. I've been doing a lot of work with rivers lately. Living in New England, there's a lot of rivers, and I spend a lot of time sitting by the rivers and thinking about water and flow. Yeah, and for me, I love that these two are next to each other. So we've got forest and we've got desert. And I lived in Utah for a very long time, and my move out there felt like a spiritual decision, as did my move to leave there to come to the forest again. And I think that our relationship to the land can be a huge part of our spiritual journey, especially if you are someone that identifies as white, that comes from a culture that has a history and a current present of, you know, colonizing like indigenous land. Our relationship to the land matters in so many different ways, whether that's, you know, making amends or reparations, or, you know, unlearning this idea that land is like ours, you know, and understanding that relational nature rather than this like possessive dynamic. Yeah, the temple. Whew, so many goodies here. We've got the empty room. It's a lot of good exploration. Ugh, yes. That difference of knowing, like, when you're pushing yourself so that you can grow versus being pushed in a way that feels harmful. That is such an important exploration. Oh, I love this. The underworld of all the worms. Vow. I really love Tracy Chapman's song. I think it's just called Promise. You know, it's like, and when I play it, it's sort of like, it reminds me of the vow that I make to myself, you know, of commitment of like, I will show up for you. I will take care of you. I won't abandon you. And that's a really sacred vow. Got the mask. The offering. I love making offerings. This is something that I've, you know, been kind of guided in both like my shamanic traditions, and then, you know, when I've studied on rare occasions with like teachers from the Tibetan tradition of making offerings. And it seems to come into play in a lot of the more like shamanic oriented cultures and like faith traditions. And I love the idea of being like, you know, I'm showing up for you, and here's a thing that I brought you, whether the you is like a god or a deity or just nature itself, or, you know, an archetype, whatever that is. Like when we show up and we give something, that is a really powerful practice. This deck just like keeps going with so many wonderful things. Oh, I love this. The thread. Like, it blows my mind when I like look back on my life and I see all the threads that are connecting from like way, way in the past, sometimes before I was even alive, until like today, and that extended to the future. Like, it is just bewildering. I cannot even comprehend it, but it's so cool. And the last card we've got Anima Mundi. I don't entirely know the meaning of that term. I believe Mundi is like world, and Anima is like the feminine aspect of the self, I think. But I'm gonna have to read what the guidebook says about this one, because I don't know. But it looks like it's got a lot of cool symbols on it, and so I'm excited to explore. So yeah, this deck is freaking awesome. Maybe go get one if you need something to do during quarantine and you want to work on archetypes because you're a nerd like me. Thanks for watching along, and if you have gotten a chance to use this deck and you want to share your experiences about it, feel free to tell me how it was for you. And as always, please stay safe and hope you have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe.